We back. We back. We back. It's another Saturday. You know what I'm saying? Another Saturday with the home girls. How are y'all today? Good. Lovely. That's great. If you haven't, I would love for you to take a moment to subscribe to Le Chanel. That would be awesome and wonderful and amazing if you would do that. For moi. I'm super excited to talk to you guys, as always, but particularly about the subject of the day, believing in yourself. I just think that, so the undercurrent of like everything we do is pretty much this, right? I always touch on this because it is always relevant. It is always important for us to have that sense of this is possible, to have that sense of I can do this. I am supported. I am empowered to invite whatever it is that you actually want into your life. So I'm super excited to have a more direct conversation about this. Give me just a second and I want to make sure I have your comments up because I love it when you leave me comments or you talk to each other. Let me see here. Girl. Okay. Kev said good morning. Sister Geek said hello, 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 hello. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for coming through and hanging out with your girl. If you're returning, I hope Teresa turns up because she usually has all the good, funny stuff to say and really good, like self-revelatory stuff to say too. But yes, if you haven't, as I mentioned, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. And I'm sure you're going to love this because, you know, I get to it. So share it with your homegirls, share it with your community, and I believe that they'll find value in it too. So thanks again for being here. So let's get to it. So first of all, we have to acknowledge already that you are already creating the life that you have. It may not be the life that you want, but that's what's happening through a series of decisions. And whether you have felt forced or whether you have felt like you didn't have a choice or whatever feelings were behind your choices, you felt like you were just making the best decision you could at the time with what you had. Like, however you feel about the choices you've made, those feelings have led you to the place where you are right now. Those choices that you've made have led you to the place where you are right now. So it's super important to honor the fact that you have already created what you're living. Because from that place, once you acknowledge that, once you embrace that, then you will be able to say, I want to do something different. Like, that's okay. Like, whatever happened is okay. And now I want to do something different. So what does that look like? And then that's where it gets a little hairy sometimes. There's this tug and pull that we go through. So the title of this chat is Believe in Yourself and Get What You Want. So what you have at some point is what you want, whether you actively chose it or passively chose it. Like, I got too much going on. I can't. It's just, we're going to work with whatever happens, right? Or an active, like, I'm going to do this, and then you make it happen. I'm going to do that, and we're going to make that happen. So we also have to acknowledge how we got here. I think it's super important for us to have a historical look. Sometimes we get ahistorical and you want to beat up on yourself for this or that. But when you have compassion for yourself and when you're able to look back, you're like, oh, well, this was going on at the time and that was going on at the time. And like, that is why I'm here in this exact place right now today. So I couldn't have been anywhere else because I couldn't have made a different choice back then. There was just this going on and that going on and what have you. And so that is exactly what led me to be here. But now that I'm here, I can make a different choice. I think about when we're kids, and they say a lot of trauma comes from there. Think about being a small person, even a baby, right? Just taking everything in, not having language, especially not having emotional intelligence, particularly if those things weren't cultivated in your household, right? So you're a small person, you're experiencing a lot of things. Everything is new, everything is fresh. You're absorbing your culture, you're absorbing those norms that come with who your people are, how they behave, how they tell you it's correct to behave, and probably seeing some things that are different. Okay, but you told me you're supposed to do this, but like you're doing the exact opposite. So what's that about? So you're probably already getting mixed signals about what's real and what's not real, what's true and what's not true. And then you're having experiences that you don't have the language to talk about. So they send you to school, right? They send you out into the world to learn, and learning happens, but a lot of other stuff happens. And so you start to think about yourself in a certain way because you're having these experiences and maybe not having the language to talk about those experiences that you're having because your parents are just like at work. Like if you went to daycare, you was just like at daycare, right? If you went to school, you was just at school. And then when you came home, they was just trying to get you ready for the next day, or maybe trying to plan something with you on the weekend, but not necessarily talking about how the teacher made you feel, how another student made you feel, how the caregiver made you feel if you were at daycare. Like, so you are forming these ideas about yourself at a super early age, like this is okay or this is not okay, or, I'm being labeled as talkative, I'm being labeled as aggressive. I wanted that crayon and she wouldn't give it to me. And like, she had it for like 15 minutes. Like, why she still need the crayon? But not the language to talk about all this stuff that you're experiencing. So that just piles up year after year, year after year after year, right? You're having these experiences and no language to talk about these experiences. You're starting to think about yourself in this certain kind of way. And it's very outward facing in, right? You're getting all this feedback from all these people. You have your parents who may say that you're difficult, or, you need to go to sleep, or you're getting on their nerves, or like whatever that is. Maybe they pour a little bit of love into you, hopefully. Maybe not. Maybe they're not necessarily affirming. Maybe they're not telling you that you're golden and you're beautiful. And, particularly as Black people, your hair, your skin, whatever those conversations look like that are affirming. And then you have people on the outside world, particularly when you get, to that age when you're trying to fit in. You don't want the secondhand clothes. You want the new clothes, because if you show up, they're going to make fun of you. Or you want a boyfriend or a girlfriend because everybody else got boyfriend or girlfriends, or so it seems. You want to fit in some kind of way. And so when do we ever have time to unpack that, right? When do we ever have time to say, oh, like people were projecting on me, all that stuff. Like I wasn't actually this or that. That's who I was in that context. So, for example, if you were like a bookworm, maybe in your school it wasn't popular to be a bookworm. And so if you had gone to another school, you would have fit right in because those students would have accepted you as you were because they were interested in the same kind of thing. So I don't know that we come to see ourselves in these contexts, in these spaces that bring out certain characteristics of ours, and then we come to see those things as good or bad based on that context. So the whole point is like, how can you believe in yourself if you don't know who you are? If you've never taken the time to really unpack all this stuff, not necessarily that you have to go like year by year. I don't think it even happens that way anyway. Like, because of how the brain works, it doesn't pick up every single click. It picks up the bad stuff because it doesn't want the bad stuff to happen to you again. And so that's why when you laying awake in the middle of the night, you're thinking about the bad stuff. You're thinking about what went wrong because you're letting your brain run the show and rehearse back to you. Oh, I felt really bad when that breakup happened, or when that friendship went wrong, or because I can't get the approval of my parents, or what have you. Hey, Teresa. KF said, that's so true. When I was a child, my school environment taught me that my opinion and ideas didn't matter. But you didn't know that then. And it probably took you some time to become aware of that. And so I'm doing a lot of this today. I'm excited. um, so being able, it's a privilege, right? Being able to take a moment to parse. And again, it's not going to be a year by year type of thing, but it is very much a, well, who am I actually? What ideas do I have about myself? Who have I shown myself to be through time? What is real and what is not real? What has been put on me versus what I actually am? And so that is a practice. Believing in yourself has to involve knowing who that person is. So how do we get our ideas about ourselves? Who am I? So if it's not a malinformed old place, if you are in fact growing, which I hope you are, then you'll be able to adjust your thinking about yourself, which helps you to believe more in yourself. Let me see. So I want you to write in the comments for me if any of this is clicking for you. If you believe in yourself, you have to see who there is to believe in. Is that too long? And if you don't write it, at least say it. If you are to believe in yourself, you have to see who there is to believe in. You have to see it. So if we're moving fast from one thing to the other, you get through school and then you trying to leave the house. And so what does that look like? Is it another school, like you go to college or university, or is that you go out and get a job? But either way, we are just often super focused on leaving our home environments and getting this independence that we crave in one way or another. So, and often life kind of dictates that. Like sometimes our home environments are crushing. And so, for example, like even through this pandemic year, this pandemonium that we've had, it's all just been like capitalism, right? Like you need to get back to work because this country needs to make money and the country can't make money if you're not working, right? Even though there's all this stuff like literal death going on. But it doesn't matter what it is that happens because capitalism is always going to drive people. You see all these countries with open borders. They're only open because they can't afford to close, right? They rely on tourism, for example. So if you want to know why things are happening often in the world, just look at the money. The world benefits from you not being in touch with yourself. The world benefits from you not being grounded in yourself. The world benefits from you not having a sense of direction and a sense of purpose where you benefit from it first, because the world needs to make money. The world needs to have you believe in various aspects in order for it to continue doing what it does, right? In order for the 1% to continue to make what they make, right? So it will keep you busy. It will keep you away from yourself to the point where we've had to create language and structures. So going back a little bit to what we were talking about, how to parse, how to process all the things that you've been through, we've had to create entire language and structures in order to do something similar to that, in order to be still, in order to sit down somewhere, and in order to rest. So you have mindfulness, you have awareness, you have the actual rest movement, like Black women need to rest more, and people who are advocating for those things. That's how much it is not a part of our lives. We've had to create these movements in order to include stillness, like literal not doing anythingness, into our our habits, into our everyday life. They're just not a part of us. Even the brain, which I think for the most part in every culture, like the brain, just because it's a human thing, is just going to do what it does. So also self-care and self-love, that is part of the language that we've had to create. And then you think about Black women historically and how much it takes historically, generation after generation after generation, for us to wake up, just to wake up and get to it another day. And how much of your mothers didn't have themselves, how much of our mothers didn't have themselves, how much our grandmothers didn't have themselves, how much they were very much in a place of providing, very much in a place of getting through the day to try and get to the next day. So it cost a lot historically. It has cost us ourselves. We weren't often able to have access to those women before us because they didn't have access to themselves. What we're trying to do in this privileged place where we are now in time is get more access to ourselves, so that these ideas of fulfillment, these ideas of self-care and self-love and mindfulness and awareness and rest can help to transform us into a life of more intentional choosing, versus what we've been doing is hopping from one pan to the next pan and, trying to get a nap in between. So if we are like a tide rising and falling, then we have to understand also that this place that we think exists, this happiness, this paradise that's in our mind, isn't an absence of negative feelings as well, right? We have to acknowledge that because we are humans and things are going to strike at different times for us in terms of understanding with more depth a lot of the things that have happened, or our place in the world, or who we are right now in this moment. Those things are going to happen. You could just be washing the dishes like, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, this clicks for me, because your brain is always running something. It's running something in the background, and then like something just kind of shifts and something clicks into place for you. And it could be completely irrelevant to what you're actually doing in the moment. So it's really important to understand that with that ebb and flow, with the rise and fall of the tide, so too like will our emotions, and leaning into that. There's a lot of talk about mindset, right? You need to be positive, you need to be solutions focused, blah, 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 blah. And the phrase emotional intelligence has surfaced as well. I don't know that we have really leaned into what that means, though. We have really embraced that and how it impacts our day-to-day experience, emotional intelligence. And so if you are to believe in yourself and see who is there, that encompasses everything that you feel, and how what you're feeling is often a direct reflection of what you think about yourself, right? So if it's a direct reflection of what you think about yourself, that's intelligence. Maybe you weren't thinking some kind things about yourself, and that affects what you're able to actually do in your day to day. If you think you ugly, you think you're going to turn your camera on, girl? If you think you don't know enough about something, do you think you're going to write the blog post or get on a podcast or reach out for an interview or whatever? Are you going to promote yourself? No, because you have a thought about yourself that is keeping you from taking the action that you need in order to do what it is you said you wanted to do, right? So that is small. I'm not telling you anything new. I never do. You already know this. What I'm doing is creating the space for you to acknowledge it and maybe move differently from it, and maybe have a different conversation with yourself so that you can experience more of what you said you wanted. Sometimes we don't really want the things that we said we want. That's why I phrase it like that. Oh, let me catch up. Okay. Teresa said, I think I'm doing that now. I used to pride myself on knowing who I am, but I've lost that over the last 10 years, I guess. 10 years is a long time. 10 years is a long time. Imagine a 20-year-old and a 30-year-old. Imagine a 30-year-old and a 40-year-old. Imagine a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old. It's a difference, right? And so it is something for us to be in touch with the person that we're growing to be. It is often very hard for us to see ourselves, often because we are outward facing. We're people pleasers, or we're self-conscious, or you're trying to get something from someone, from parents or from friends or from romantic relationships. And so you're often not actually and truly with yourself to see, oh, my priorities are changing, or, oh, I think this about myself, and like that actually happened 15 years ago. Like I don't have to see myself in that way anymore. Like I can let that go now. That's not true. It's not true today in 2021, or whenever you're watching this video, if YouTube continues to exist. So it is super important to stay in touch. We're moving. That ebb and flow is real. We are moving. There's some parts of us, I think, that kind of stay true throughout, but I think things definitely change, particularly if you're interested in different things. Maybe you like to knit. Maybe you like to craft. I don't know. Maybe you like to skateboard. Maybe you like to bachata. Maybe you like to skydive. Like maybe you're interested in certain things, but like after some time, some things just fall off, which is okay, right? But if you're in touch with yourself, then you understand, oh, I picked up this habit then. Like, that's not really my thing no more. Or I started to think about myself like this. Or I realized that I've always thought this way about myself. I don't have to think about myself like that anymore. If you believe in yourself, you have to see who it is that you believe in. Thank y'all. Okay, y'all got it. It wasn't too long. Hey, Supreme Sovereign. My maternal grandmother just turned 98. Wow. Lord knows all the compounded trauma she endured just by being a Black woman in America. And I bet she don't never talk about it. I bet you she don't never talk about it. I bet you anything she don't never talk about it. Never. And imagine, like, the therapy movement and how popular it is now, how poppin' it is now. Like it always wasn't in the travel as well. It always wasn't. And so, which I think travel is a form of therapy. It can be. Sometimes you're just taking yourself to another place. And so, wow, just imagine. And the reasons why they never talk about what they went through. Why we never have access to that knowledge. But we live with it, but we're impacted by it because of the way they showed up in our lives and how we think about ourselves. And sometimes, you model yourself after what you see. Sometimes you model yourself after just what you inherit. It's other people's behavior and you watch how they move and you say, oh, they're doing this, they're doing that. I don't want to do that. That's not for me. Sometimes you can read about it. Sometimes you see it, but sometimes like it's just in your very blood. Like if I had the opportunity when I was in Penang, Malaysia, to work with some kids. They have these really big graduation performances every year with like the costumes and the dancing and all that. So I was hoping to like do some expressions and choreography a little bit. And I just saw how at such a young age, the culture is steeped in them. How at such a young age, they were already very much whatever that was, because Malaysia has a few different cultures. They were already very much whatever their culture was, and these are like 3 to 6 to 10, maybe 8, a little bit younger. Very, very much the way they talked, what they talked about. I shared one of those stories one time, but it happens young, steeped. Yes. Get out of my head, girl. Nope. I'm up in there, Teresa. She's still living life on her terms. She definitely doesn't bite her tongue on her thoughts. That's good. Spent 20 years focusing on being a good mom for my 2 children. Now that my youngest has gone off to college, I'm looking to find out who I am, apart from just being a wife and a mother. That's real. that responsibility, like, right? A lot, and that's what a lot of parents have done. They have turned themselves completely off. I think that it is difficult. I haven't had to do it. I am the youngest of 10 kids. And so all my brothers and sisters gave me their kids to watch, right? And, I'm a kid myself. Like, I'm young. So, but I do remember just what a responsibility it was to, multiple meals a day, and they getting into this and that, and they getting on my nerves. And, I'm a kid. I don't really have tools. Ain't nobody teach me about babysitting and like how to do that or whatever. So I could imagine, like, as an adult, you have work, which takes up the bulk of your week, and then the kids, and constantly thinking about them and what they need. And, are they pushing you away? And like, what are you going to do about that? Not to mention a partner, if one of those is involved. I can imagine how just part of you just goes to sleep. Part of you is just, you don't have or make time for yourself to just be with yourself, because you are constantly planning, you are constantly preparing. What about college? Like, where's that money going to come from? So I could imagine. Um, yep. So what now? Nope, she doesn't do it all right. She'll make passing comments. Something is from a bygone time, but she doesn't elaborate as if asked to. Why? Why do we do that? Whoo. I spent my daughter's senior year every day dropping her off at school. I asked myself, what am I going to do when she leaves? Oh, driving around town, getting red tops and black bottoms for the school Christmas concert. And then those kids, they just totally self-involved. Like, that's what they're supposed to do. I guess completely self-involved with their own mini dramas, their own like lives. They have it full entire lives. I don't know what I was thinking back then. Do you remember what you thought, like, as a teenager, like you in high school or maybe middle school? You just wrapped up in what was happening in the day, and hearing your parents complain about adulting, money don't grow on trees, and like whatever else it was. And I think we carry that to some extent into adulthood, this being very internal about what's going on in our lives, and maybe not talking about it. This is why I talk about these things in this kind of way. It's because people didn't, I have 9 older brothers and sisters, but like, they never gave me the business ever. They never was like, girl, this is what's going to happen. Okay. They brought you into this world. They're gonna send you to school, and then you're gonna have to figure out how to pay bills and fend for yourself. You're gonna have to figure out food, transportation, where you gonna live. You're gonna have to figure everything out on your own. It really, I'm constantly stunned by the fact that people bring other people into the world and do not equip them to actually live in the life, right? They just give you the stuff they gave you, like, oh, you get to go to school, get a job, maybe get married, and maybe have kids and own some property. Who has that worked for? Like all of those things together, like, who has that worked for, right? And a lot of times, and this is what we don't know, is like the people telling us that they didn't have a lot of that stuff themselves. It's just like, this is all sus. They just have us out here in the wild winging it and not being fulfilled because we are winging it. Where's the consciousness? Where's the intention? So that's what we're talking about. Buying them on the way to school. I hate to cook. I heard that. So, and this could be a lifelong process, right? Of making space for ourselves, because we're trying to create a habit. If you've been on this earth for so many years and you've had this one kind of habit or this one way of looking at yourself for so many years, it takes time to change that. It takes time to put it into practice, and it is a constant practice. So there's going to be some backsliding, as we like to say, which is okay, because what's most important is that you know why you're doing what it is that you're doing. and keeping in touch with what it is that you want so that you can continue. If you don't have that, then life gets bleak, I think. Imagine like generations before just waiting for retirement, essentially, having that rusty office talk and maybe a happy hour here and there and maybe the holidays. But it's just like people have really gotten used to the idea of not enjoying their day-to-day life. And to break from that, excuse me. Wow, what a time to sneeze. And to break from that takes practice. Like, oh, I'm here and I can actually enjoy who I am and what it is that I want and take some actions that feel good to me and feel good just in my day-to-day life and make space for the people around me because I have already centered myself and I already have enough space for myself. I have fulfilled myself. I have fulfilled my needs. And if there are people around me that I feel like could add to that, like your presence has to be more, maybe not more, at the very least, like my being alone and being well cannot be impacted by your presence, right? I'm not fitting to be any old kind of, right? Tortured or just like brought down by people who are not doing their work. So also something to think about. So I want to do an exercise with you. And this exercise is going to perhaps help you to get into who you are right now. So let's just take a beat. And I want you to put your hand on your heart. You could do opposite or same side hand. It doesn't matter. I'm just holding my microphone. So, but just put your hand on your heart and just take a nice big deep breath. Let that breath get all the way down into your belly. Let your belly go and let it expand. And then I want you to exhale fully. Let it all go. And I want you to inhale again very deeply and let it go. And you can close your eyes if you want. It might help you to focus during this exercise. So what we are doing is I have an analogy of our brains. Our brains are like scared kids. They are reacting to the things that happened in the past that you don't want to happen again. So your brain is like, I don't want that to happen again, and that happened, and I don't want that to happen. Or your brain is afraid of a hypothetical future. Well, what if it goes left? What if it goes wrong? What if I run out of money? What if? So what we're doing is getting into our bodies by breathing, getting into the presence of now. Our brain is virtually never present. So we're going to be present together right now. So we breathed a little bit. I want you to feel your heart beating. Actually feel the blood pumping. Where do you feel it? Can you feel it in your toes or in your legs? Can you feel it pumping through your arms? Is it strong? Is it faint? Do you feel just a general buzzing or vibration? And keep breathing. You could breathe normally or you could keep deep breathing. Deep breathing is always great though. I want you to think about the last time you felt really content. Did you have a really good meal? Like something just tasty? Or was it a nice walk? Maybe you caught a sunset or caught a nice breeze. Put yourself back in that moment of when you just felt really content. Did you just wake up from a really good nap and you just felt so refreshed? What was the feeling? You felt satiated. You felt fulfilled. You felt like everything was right in that moment. You felt like it was just a perfect stillness. You felt complete. What did you feel? Can you feel that right now? That feeling of content. Where were you? What were you doing? So now that you have some good vibes going through your body, right? You're present, you're breathing, you've put yourself in a good mood, which you have available to you all the time. You can put yourself in a good mood. Let's use that brain of yours to continue this exercise of imagination. Imagination is going to get you to the places you want to go. You are imagining a way forward for yourself. You're imagining more of what feels good to you. So let's project this from the present into the future. And I want you to think about what makes you happy. Not content. We're moving from content to happy. What lights you up? What are you doing when you're lit up? Are you helping someone? Are you speaking from your heart? Are you listening to someone? Are you doing something that you do really well? What do you look like? What does your hair look like? What clothes are you wearing? Where are you living? Is it an apartment in a city? Is it a house in the countryside or something in between? What kind of food and drink do you have around you? What are your daily habits? You wake up, you drink your water. Do you have a moment of stillness before you start your day? Maybe you have some breakfast, or maybe you exercise first. Maybe do a little yoga or take a walk. And then maybe you do the thing that lights you up. Are you writing? Are you recording? Are you meeting with someone? What does that look like for you? And so imagine the day winding down whenever you want it to, right? And then you have your evening. So maybe you are preparing to finish your day and you're preparing for the next day. Okay, what do I got to do tomorrow? Did you go to an office to do this work, or were you working from home, or maybe a co-working office? Did you have employees around you, or maybe you were meeting with them virtually? How are you collaborating? So the work is done. What does your evening look like? Do you have a chef coming over to cook? Or are you going out to eat? Or are you cooking your own food? What does your kitchen look like? What kind of setup is there? Get into the details. What color are your plates? What are the things that you touch and have around you that feel good every single day? Maybe you have a little wine, maybe a bubble or two from the fridge. Maybe you have a wine fridge. If you don't drink, that's fine. Just get your juice, girl. Maybe you got a juicer. And then you have like the rest of your evening. Maybe you watch something, or maybe you call a friend and catch up and you cackling on the couch. Um, who's there with you? Perhaps you're not alone. Maybe you have a partner there with you, or maybe you have kids with you or grandkids with you. Maybe you're taking an evening walk, getting some air, or going to the gym, or maybe you're sitting outside. Maybe you have a patio or a balcony. You're having some tea and you're just reflecting on the goodness in your life. Like, wow, I got here. I dreamt of this life a year ago, 2 years ago. I dreamt of being able to spend my time how I want to spend my time. I dreamt of being able to make money how I want to make money. I dreamt of having these kinds of relationships in my life. I dreamt of being healthier and having good eating habits and good habits of moving my body around. And I'm here. It could be coffee too. It doesn't have to be tea. But you're here. And that's what you're thinking about at the end of your day. After you've spent this day doing the stuff that you wanted, that you actually have, you're living it. Can you feel that? Can you feel how good that feels? The sun is going down and the place where you choose to live, on the furniture you chose to buy, or the place you chose to live with the furniture you like the most. And you got there. Who is that lady? Who is she? What decisions does she make to get to this place? What did she have to let go of to get to this place? What did she invite into her life to get to this place? That lady has some wisdom, and she is in direct connection to you in the present. And you can ask her all the questions you need to ask her. Well, girl, how did you get here? So ask her, listen to her, and start to think of what you can do right now today to get to where she is. So if you want, because we're not rude, if you want, you could say goodbye to her for now. Be like, all right, girl, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to catch up with you later. You can open your eyes. You can stretch a little bit. If you closed your eyes, you can stretch a little bit. Wasn't that wonderful? Imagine using your brain like that all the time. Imagine believing that you can get to that place because you are making the space for yourself to be in touch with yourself. Imagine letting go of the past. Well, you said you was going to do this and that didn't work out. All right. Well, is that helpful right now? Because we're only doing helpful things in this space. Okay. Remember to separate your brain from yourself. Remember that your brain is it's just out there. What you're trying to do is harness the power of your brain and use it to imagine your way forward. And then tap out from your brain and be present right now for what you could do right now today, for who you are right now today, for what you could be, for what you could feel. And if you don't take out time to be and to take action right now today, and also take time to see what it feels like when you get there, like what does that look like? What does that feel like? Then your brain is just going to run amok. It'll have you feeling all sorts of bad. It'll have you thinking all sorts of stuff that it really ain't got nothing to do with you. It'll have you being jealous. It'll have you being insecure. It'll have you tearing yourself down from the inside out so that you don't even get to walk out the door and try nothing. That is what believing in yourself looks like. It looks like being focused and saying, hey, brain, thanks, girl, for bringing all this stuff up. That's not what we're doing, right? We are focused. I said I wanted to do this thing. I'm starting this blog. So in order to start this blog, what I'm going to do is set aside an hour of time every day, 3 days a week, 4 days a week. You make promises to yourself. I'm going to set this side of time and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to figure it out step by step. And I'm going to get the support that I need from the communities that I'm tapped into. If I have questions, I know that I could go to these places to ask those questions to make this process a little bit easier. Or I hire a coach, or I join a mastermind, like whatever that looks like for you. You give yourself a chance. You give yourself the opportunity to really, really show up. That's what growth is. We all love that gif from Insecure of Kelly. Is that the character's name or the actual actor's name? I don't know. Actress name. But she says growth, right? Growth. I'm making a different decision, but I'm not just making it in my head. I'm not just acknowledging it in my emotions. I'm taking the action. They say that a lot of who we are is stored up in our very DNA, like in our physical bodies. That's why when we were doing the exercise, I was talking about movement. Movement is not just so we could be skinny, which for some reason that's an idea that we all have, is that we want to be skinny and our lives will be better because, fat people have a hard time in the world. So those are the politics behind it, but the actual biology behind it, and you could do your own research and come to your own conclusions, of course. But the biology behind it is that a lot of our memories are stored in our body. When we get nervous, where do you feel it? You feel it in your stomach, or your chest tightens up, or maybe you start to get emotional, your throat tightens up. There have been studies that have been done that have said that a lot of trauma is stored in the physical body. So that's why when I was talking about this and trying to get you to come to this chat, I was talking about how important it is for us to get into our emotions, and our emotions are attached to our bodies. So we got to move that out. We got to clear it all out. You got to twerk it away. Maybe twerking been around for a long time. Like it's nothing new really. So, and historically, like we've been movers. So I think that it's important to, in this process of inviting growth into our lives, to release it, not just from our minds, not just from our hearts, but also release it from our bodies. And sometimes it just comes with intentions. People talk about rituals or what have you, habits, rituals. And sometimes it's just in the acknowledging the thing that makes it happen. Sometimes just by saying, like, I acknowledge that you exist. I acknowledge that I'm nervous right now. That may not make the nervousness goes away, but the nervousness is seen. Like, I acknowledge that I'm nervous right now. I acknowledge that I'm frightened right now. That is not who I am in my totality. That is just an experience. That's an emotion. And we know emotions come and go. Right? And so I acknowledge that you're here right now because I'm present with you. And I'm still going to take this action. I'm still going to grow. So with growth, we are making different decisions, taking action, moving through it with our bodies, and building trust in ourselves as we are taking these new actions over and over and over again. You sat down Wednesday to write your blog, and then you sat down Friday to write your blog, and then you sat down again on Saturday to write your blog. And maybe you only have 1 or 2 actual posts that are ready to be published, but that's what you did. That is progress. That is growth, because you acknowledged that you wanted to have this blog in the first place. And then you got through all the emotional stuff that said you shouldn't have the blog, which there's probably some stuff there, because there's stuff for all of us, right? that say, man, don't do that because people not gonna like you, or the market is oversaturated, or like whatever people say in order to stop themselves and you to move forward into whatever it is you're interested in experimenting with. And you did it. Got through the head, got through the heart, and then you did it with your body. That is also an exercise of the body, is to say, I'm going to live in this good feeling. I'm going to live in the thing that I want to share. That's why I like these lives so much. I'm doing it with my body. Like, I'm here and I'm showing up and I am saying the stuff that I care to talk about with people who I believe care to hear it from me specifically. And that feels good to me. Like, these are high vibes every time. And, it's been what, like 6 or 7 weeks in a row, building that within myself, building a habit, showing myself whatever it is I'm here to show myself, saying things out loud. That's why people like therapy in some ways, is because you say the things out loud that you may have never said. Often we're talking to ourselves inside our heads and it's circular. You get to say these things out loud and hear yourself say them, maybe in a way that you haven't said them inside your head to yourself. And it just pushes it forward. It's forward momentum. It's forward motion. All of that it's so good. It's just so good. And everything may not land. Again, the ebb and flow. Everything may not land how you expect it to land, which is fine, because you are learning. You are figuring it out. You are giving yourself an opportunity to experiment, to give something a try, to put yourself in the path of whatever is next, if that thing isn't specifically it. So you started somewhere. I've talked before about like having a plan for a building. If you don't start the foundation, you're not going to lay down that first brick or put down that first support column. You're not going to do any of that unless you get that foundation. And your idea for the use of the building may change, but you're never going to get there until you pour that foundation. You cannot stop yourself before you get out the door. And that's often what we do. We don't believe in ourselves. We don't give ourselves a chance to live. When I come out the gate, I have to be very polished. I have to have all my brand identity. I have to know who my target market is. I have to know this, and that. You'll never find out. And that's not the way it generally works anyway. Like, people have an idea about something, but then you'll see who actually shows up. Like, that's usually how it always works. So you come to understand what you're teaching yourself. That's what this is all about. That's what all of this is about. The travel, the online streams of income. This is about you showing yourself who you are. You giving yourself what it is that you want. You learning from yourself and your emotions and what the present has to show you, what the present has to teach you. And just giving yourself some freedom to breathe, to breathe and try and fail and continue on to whatever is next. Maybe the blog didn't do so well, but because you started the blog, then you were able to start your podcast. And then because you had done the blog, you had an idea for how to build a website for your podcast. Like, however it looks, acknowledging that one thing leads to the next and getting started and continuing to go, making it a practice is super important to the process. Taking that action to move through it, to let it move through you. Oh, well, I said I wanted a blog, and I've been trying this habit for the last few weeks and I have been showing up, but I just don't find that this is the best mode of expression for me. Giving yourself the freedom to change your mind. The blog is not for me, girl. I thought it was for me, but maybe I don't like writing as much as I used to like writing. And that's okay. So what else can it look like? That was not a waste of time. That was some experience that I gained. That was me honoring myself by trying something that I wanted to try. So it's okay for me to change my mind and do something completely different. If you don't give yourself that, nobody else is going to give it to you. We often have to give ourselves these permissions because lack of being affirmed previously in our lives. We often have to give ourselves permission. It's okay to take a nap. It's okay to sit and say these things out loud to someone else who I see has the capacity and the space to hear me in that way. Because my experience has taught me that not everyone is able to receive what it is that I have to say, particularly when it comes to this travel and online business stuff, right? A lot of the people who have been in your life previously who don't want this aren't going to get it. They don't have nothing to say about it. Like, oh, are you sure you want to do that? Well, who's going to take care of the house? Or like, what's going to happen to the kids? Or they're just going to come at you with all kinds of fears, which may play into your own fears. That's why you have to know who to talk to about what, so that you keep yourself shored up. You keep yourself confident. You keep yourself focused and giving yourself the attention that you need to live your actual life, and not lives that we've lived previously with all this information coming from the outside to shape who we are. No, I shape these waters. You don't shape me. I'm in here. I'm alive. I'm awake. I'm alive. And this is what I want to do right now today. And if I change my mind, that's okay too. But I'm doing this right now today. And being around people, that's why community is so important to me. Just the mere fact sometimes that these places are spaces where people often want something similar. They just get it. They just get it. And then you're able to cut out a lot of the other conversation. Like, girl, you should have an airport. Actually, how are you going to do that? That's cool. Versus, those people they haven't done the work that you have in order to dream the life that you've dreamt, or dream their own lives for themselves. So that's really important. Knowing who you can talk to about what, so that you continue to nurture yourself, to grow yourself, to let yourself have those ebbs and flows, to acknowledge the doubts, to acknowledge the fears, and say, I have compassion for you, girl. I get why that's scary. I get why you are concerned about that being successful. And this is what we're going to do. Me and you, let's go. Come on, hook up, elbow to elbow. Right? And that's exactly what it looks like. That's the exact conversation that you're constantly having with yourself, to keep your brain from running all around the room, marking up your walls, marking up the furniture, flipping everything upside down. Because your brain will do that. Your brain is messy. She will make a mess, and you cannot let her. I'm going to need you to sit in the corner. Okay. Here's some snacks. And I'm going to be over here doing the work. Thank you. Versus making your whole day a wreck because she got out of hand. What y'all talking about? Y'all talking to each other. I love it when y'all talk to each other. That was awesome. I'm ready to go now. Yes, you are, Teresa. November soon come. Oh my goodness, Wanda, that was an experience. My brain be tripping. Everybody, thank you for sharing with us. Powerful. My pleasure. Had me crying at the sheer joy of the belief. At the belief of this being my life I get to cultivate. Can you imagine? I'm grinning from ear to ear. I don't even know you, but I am so happy for you, all of you, that it is pure joy. I wrote in a newsletter. So I send out a newsletter every single Sunday or Monday sometimes, but it's been every single week. It was not enough for me to be out here in these streets. I have my peace, for the most part. I have my own ebb and flow. I still have my things that I sit my brain down with and say, okay, girl, you're doing a lot, actually. So, but it has never been enough for me to be out here just on my own. I have always wanted this for more Black women. And so it has been a process of me understanding what I want that to look like, how I can serve exactly, like all that good stuff. So it's all the things I'm telling you, I've had to do myself. And it's going to look, a little bit different for everybody. It's going to be a little bit of different language, but I know for sure, what I know for sure is that we could all use a lot more compassion and a lot more sweetness with ourselves, because most of us haven't had that, historically speaking, like in our lives. We just haven't. We haven't had that kind of support, that kind of what is a better word than support? I don't know. But we haven't had that. So we need to be that. We need to go back and give our kid selves the stuff that they need. Like, girl, your ears are not too big, or your nose is not too big, or your teeth are not too buck, or you're actually beautiful. Imagine you coming out into the world and somebody having an opinion about you. And affirming ourselves all the way from way back when, all the way up till now, every step of the way. It's just a constant cheerleading fest going on. It's like, you go, not you waking up, not you making coffee, not you sitting down at your laptop, not you taking a nap, not it's just constant, like, well, I'm really proud of you. Because how often have we heard that? Like, never. Well, not never, but not often, not often enough. I think that we suffer from a lack of healthy ego. I think you need a healthy ego to step up. Imagine what it takes to show up. It takes a lot, right? And so a healthy ego helps you to get to that place, because you have some really amazing, wonderful things to share. Imagine some of your favorite artists. Imagine some of your favorite musicians. Imagine some of your favorite anything, creators of every sort. If they had too unhealthy of an ego to not show up, we wouldn't have some of the most impactful stuff. Imagine if Aretha Franklin never opened her mouth and she just sang in the shower. How would your life be different? Well, I mean, some of those songs were really bad, but I mean, bad, not just in the bad of like, oh, I need you. I'm not nothing without you. Like, we could have done without them, because, words mean things. And that's another thing, we need to cultivate really positive messaging, not like in a toxic kind of way, but again, it's that cheerleading. It doesn't have to just come from you. I think about my influences all the time. What am I reading? What podcasts am I listening to? What kind of healing am I inviting into my life? I love Dr. Tama's podcast, the Homecoming podcast. And it's free. My goodness. Every single week she comes out with a new short episode. And the beautiful thing is, even if it's something that I think doesn't apply to me, I always learn something from it. There's another therapist, Spirit. She had a show on OWN, and she does what is it called? Something Friday, where she gives advice on Facebook. It multicasts different places, but you can ask directly on Facebook. And just the quality of the conversations that are there help me to see myself differently, help me to have hope, and encourage me, even if it's not something that I directly relate to. These are high vibe conversations. I think that's why people love gospel so much, is because in some ways they are high vibe. Some of it, I don't want to lose you here. Some of it can be I'm not worthy, I can't manage, and I need God to take the lead, which I think is disempowering in some ways, because then you don't step up and say, I am worthy and I can make some things happen in my life. So those are just my thoughts about that. But keeping high vibe things around you, keeping encouraging things around you. So those are two therapists that I like. What else do I mean, I like to laugh. I have a comedy playlist of Black women comedians on YouTube that I sometimes throw on. Or I love music. I put on, whoever is doing it for me, Jasmine Sullivan, whoever's doing for me at the time, where I'm enjoying myself. I don't think that we spend enough time being happy and inviting joy into our lives in those kinds of ways. There are some essays or some writers, and I just really dig their whole vibe and how raw and how honest, because that's what I'm all about. How raw and how honest their conversations are, how much they reveal about themselves and their processes and the things that they've had to get through. And I have the podcast, so I do that every week. But that's more in a service role for me versus where I just get to be a spectator in these other spaces. But I also have enjoyed those conversations over time. So yes, it's very important to keep good stuff around you. And sometimes I have a little trash, but I don't really want to talk about that right now while y'all are trying to force it out of me. No, I'm just but it's beautiful. Just imagine using your brain in that way. Just imagine that wisdom that is within reach. It's future you. You have access to you. Hold on. Tell me how you got there. Let me get there. Hold on. Every day. I mean, it doesn't have to be every day, but yes, it's a great way to start your day. It's very motivating. Like it's that I can do this. I can get there. And to prove it to yourself, think about all the stuff that you came through to get to where you are right now. You may not think it's a lot because you lived it. And this is the other thing we do. We forget that. That's why I love looking back, and on the podcast, I encourage them to look back too. Where'd you come from? How did you create this person? What were the influence? What were the decisions you made at different stages in your life in order to come to this place where you said, I'm moving to Germany. I'm whatever. So think about all that you've been through. And this is a part of the compassion as well. It's like, my family was this and that, and I ended up working here. And even though I didn't like it, like I still got hired and I worked there for so many years, and now I'm making a different choice. And this is really dope. Like, wow, I did that. Don't discount your experience just because it's yours. Sometimes we praise people for the stuff that we've been through just because we fail to value it. Maybe because we're looking at what it cost, right? We're looking at how it hurt us versus having been an experience that we survived. If you want to be a little bit more analytical, if you want to be a bit more, I don't even know if analytical is the right word, but to separate yourself from what's happened, you could just start to look at the events in your life as information. This is what I don't want. This is what I do want. Wow, I went through that. Okay, well, that was information. I don't want that. I don't want that to happen again. So what can I do to make a different choice? Not in a frozen state of, being petrified. Like, I'm scared to repeat that. No, okay. So that's an experience I don't want. What can I do? What have I learned from that so that I don't repeat that? Or I really enjoyed that. I would like to invite more of that into my life. I don't like that. I don't want that no more. I enjoyed that. How can I get more of that? So you just kind of go back and forth instead of being like, girl, and then this happened. And then they was talking about me. And then that made me feel even worse. And then I tried to go and do this. And then I couldn't even get this. And wouldn't nobody help? And that's what we do, right? We think about how bad things were. I mean, they were bad. I'm not saying they wasn't bad. They was bad. They was real bad. And the person that we were at that point wasn't equipped to deal with that situation in a way that you could get through it unscathed, that you could get through it unharmed. But I believe that you're a different person today. And so you don't have to have experiences in those same way if you choose not to. So we're making different choices. We're growing, right? We're making different choices. We're living them in our body. It's our head, it's our hearts, and it's our bodies. Yes, recentering. I can't twerk. My body won't move like that. Please don't take my sister card. It's just a word. Everybody got to dance. Just do your dance. You got to cut the people who subtract from your dream. Not completely. Just don't go as often and don't stay as long when you see them. Yeah, it's just healthy boundaries. You know who they are. A lot of times, right? You know who they are. You know what to expect. Sometimes they can surprise you. So maybe leave yourself open for maybe a good surprise. But you protect your heart, you protect your spirit, you protect your momentum, and you say, I realize what I'm stepping into. This is a person I still want as a part of my life, and I know who they are. I'm not going to let them impact my decisions that I'm making. I'm not going to let them impact how I feel about myself. I'm not going to be pulled into whatever storm they have going on. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to stay inside myself. Because that's what we say. Like, you try to pull me up out myself. Don't let them pull you outside of yourself. You stay grounded. You stay anchored in yourself so that you remain true to yourself. Because a lot of times it's just wasted energy, right? We've learned a lot of that, particularly like these online interactions sometimes. Like, how can you not know what we've been through as a people? Ain't nobody doing that. I'm not explaining to you the whole of slavery. I'm just not. I'm not explaining to you why my life matters. I'm just not. What I'm going to do is just go let my life matter. A lot of us were having these conversations, especially in the eye of the storm last year when everything got quiet but racism, and how most of us were not putting our energies there. Most of us were putting our energies into our communities and the solutions that we had come up with, which often involved travel and entrepreneurship, and directing our energy there versus the stuff we didn't have any control over, which is how people see us. Which was a lot of reason why we wanted to leave in the first place as Black people, because in that construct, in the construct of America, it was very difficult for people to just see us as who we are, which could make it harder for us to see us as we are. So in leaving, in traveling, sometimes we were better able to see ourselves because we were not in that inherently oppressive structure anymore. Bloop. But yes, don't let folks pull you outside yourself. Boundaries and purging. Come on, say it. Boundaries and purging. Things and people who deplete you are self-care. I'm all for completely cutting folks out of my life if the behavior is toxic, or if there's a complete disregard to my boundaries, thoughts, feelings. Y'all gotta go. That's the word. And sometimes it could just lead us back to ourselves as well. Sometimes the toxic person is us, because we have a lot of unprocessed stuff that's sitting there. And so these people are triggering those unprocessed things. I'm not saying that you should just be able to sit in the toilet with everybody, right? Because that's not how it works. But how it does work is just that awareness and acknowledging the parts of you that still need to heal. The bad friendship that ended badly that you wish hadn't. And no matter what you said, that person could not see you differently or see the situation differently. It wasn't both of you being able to see the problem as the problem. That's something that Spirit says. You're not the problem. I'm not the problem. The problem is the problem. So what are we going to do to fix this problem? So but it does take some awareness. Why are there triggers? Why would you react that way to the person? And what do you need to shift around inside you so that you're not reacting in that way? Because you are healed, not because you're just trying to turn it off and not respond. It's like when you tickle a dude and he don't laugh, like, you tickled. But you stop allowing yourself to feel the sensation of tickling. Doubt is a dream killer. The smallest amount will derail you. It'll have you in the bed in fetal position, okay? Who got time for that? Unless we taking naps? No. Black women are not given the grace from society, so we have to give ourselves and each other that grace. Ourselves and each other. I'm beginning to realize grace for self. Yes, Black women supporting Black women supporting Black women. That's what it's about. And racks on racks on racks. Grace has been my theme for this month. This is more evident from the ancestors that I'm on the right path. Oh, come on, signs. That hit home for me. Don't wait for it to come to your door. Invite joy into your life. I get joy when I think of come. Oh, I don't really know that song. I just one of the shows I like watching, they do a lot of gospel. So that's how I learned gospel. It's through student show. Animated shows definitely help me stay in my happy place, laughing and just finding joy, even in the smallest places, are ways for me to stay centered. Yes. I watch a lot of fantasy and sci-fi. Like I watched the Chronicles of Narnia series. That's like super old. Again, I don't know. There's something about it that it helps me to dream. It helps me to not be so rooted in this reality because you hardly ever see yourself really in this reality. If you think about it, all these images that we have around that don't really and truly reflect us. So it's important to be able to have that part of your brain pumping and exercised and being used thoroughly so that you can see yourself in the places that you want to go and believing that it's possible to get there. Okay. I need to be more deliberate about doing the things that bring me closer to what I want out of life, centering myself, inviting joy into my life, surrounding myself with high vibe things. It is a deliberate choice. I could watch Real Housewives. Okay, you pulled it out of me. So on YouTube, they put these clips up and they're like, is it Real Housewives or hip hop? It's hip hop Atlanta. I think that's what it was. I don't think I've ever watched Housewives. Anyway, they have these clips on YouTube and they're like the reunion shows or maybe just like clips of a certain character like back to back to back. And it's so trashy. It's really horrible. The things, and particularly these black women, not to be all judgy, but I got to be a little bit judgy because these men are not all of that. For these fake music careers, but the things they say and they do for the time on TV is amazing. But it has to cost so much. It just has to cost so much. So I don't really like to watch it. But I lived in Atlanta for a while and I was just like, wow, there must be 5 Atlantas because I never saw none of that when I was there. But it is interesting. But that's not high vibe. Really. That's not me seeing myself at all. That's just a curious thing like, wow. Yikes. Looking back and thinking of how I got to where I am today is easy for me. Comes from being an only child. Come on, hashtag only child. Y'all funny. Hey, Angela. Hey, girl. Someone once told me you are not always the shero in your own story. I mean, but you can be. I mean, who else has saved you? Yes, all about sci-fi and fantasy triggers the imagination. Wanda, yes, fantasy and sci-fi, that's where it's at. Y'all funny. I love sci-fi and fantasy too. Watch the movie Tomorrowland. I saw that pop up for recommendations, but I haven't watched it yet. It's about a place reserved for people who make their dream inventions real with unlimited resources. Wow. I like Real Housewives of Atlanta and Love and Hip Hop. That's what it's called, Angel. Love and Hip Hop. I can't watch that though. They so messy though. Oh, all that fighting over these toads. Ugh. My other go-to movie is Rocky. We creating all kind of clubs in this group. I love y'all. We are allowed to have our own train wreck TV too. Okay, Angela. Okay. But I do find myself wanting to cuss a whole lot more after I watch that type of stuff. So I don't know. It's fine. It's fine. Um, I was gonna tell you something. Okay, so I'll tell you about, I don't think I ever told this story yet. It was about when I was making my decision to leave the first time. So if you don't know, I tried to leave America in 2010 and I was working at CNN. I had my little condo, my Toyota Camry. And this was after my mother and my sister had passed. So I'm in my bedroom. I remember this. And it was just after I watched this movie to help put me back in the frame of mind that I was in. So I watched Benjamin Button. And in the movie, if you're not familiar with the concept, he ages backwards. So he starts as an old man and he winds up a baby. And there's a woman in his life and they spend a short amount of time together because, he old and he real young. So they just kind of get it in the middle and they become pregnant. So he has a child that he does not know for a long time because he leaves because he's turned into a baby. So he sends her letters. So he's traveling the world. He's out there living his life. And he's doing all these just different jobs. You see him being like a toll booth operator. You see him like, maybe it's Nepal, I'm not really sure. But just like out brushing his teeth on the lake or whatever with the other locals. In the letter, he tells his daughter that no matter what age she is, no matter what it is that she's doing, that he hopes she has the strength to start over again. And that part really stuck with me. So I'm in Atlanta in my condo, and it just got down into my spirit real good. I'm sitting on my bed, and if you know me, I love a good bed with my duvet cover, with my feather duvet thing. What is it? I don't even know. Feather blanket with the duvet cover, and my sheets, my thread count. And I'm looking around my room and I was just like tearing up. I was like, I don't want any of this. I don't want any of this. I don't need any of this anymore. And that was a really emotional decision for me at the time to say, I've gotten to this place. I left my hometown. I'm from Illinois. I left my hometown. I've been in Atlanta. I was there for maybe, I don't know, maybe like 5 years at that point. Maybe about 5 years at that point. I had the golden job at CNN. People who work for CNN don't usually go anywhere else because if you do, you're probably going to go to local, which doesn't pay as well or have as many perks. So, and I kind of accidentally ended up there. I didn't move to Atlanta to work at CNN. I moved to Atlanta and ended up working at CNN. It was not very intentional at all. So anyway, I'm just like, nah, this is not it. There was some stuff that was happening at work too that pushed me to that point. And that was it. That was it. That was the moment that I remember releasing my idea of what my life had to look like at that point. And to say, I can let this go and I will be okay. And it's taken years. It's taken years to actually be okay. And that's okay too. I've had to work through not necessarily the leaving CNN because they didn't deserve me. Okay. But allowing myself to want what I wanted and to figure that out. Because if you know the story, I ended up right back in Atlanta after maybe like 10 months or something like that. Or 11. Was it 10? 10 or 11 months, something like that. I left in January. I ended up back there maybe October. I don't remember. So far away. And hurt. Ooh, I was hurt when I went back. And it was so much harder when I went back. So much harder. Trying to get a job, trying to reintegrate. My friends who I thought was my friends wasn't my friends. And I still wasn't close with my family. And like all this stuff. And getting up the courage to leave again, which I did in 2016. After I said, okay, maybe I'm too flighty. I just need to sit down and like really try this thing. Ain't nobody else. Wasn't nobody else. And still, for the most part, nobody that I was close with then understood my desire to leave. But I still left and I've been gone. And it's been 5 years that I've been gone now, almost 6. But it took a lot, right? A lot of changes. There was a whole marriage and most recently a divorce that happened during that time that y'all don't even know about probably. So like a lot of life happened in Atlanta. I'm so happy to have closed that chapter and to have gotten away from that. But yeah, that fantasy movie, that sci-fi movie, this concept of someone reversing an age, but it was just that permission being like, I hope that you don't get so caught up in your idea of what it's supposed to be that you don't let your life be what it can be. Boom. And like letting go of the leases and letting go of the cars and letting go of anything that could call you back. I also don't, like I've said, I'm not close with my family. So like, my parents have both passed. So like it might be a little bit more something for you. Like if you have kids or you have aging parents, that's a reality for a lot of folks. So maybe they choose to live not so far away. Maybe the flights are shorter where they choose to live, but they still leave. You know what I mean? Like they try to figure out a way to make it manageable. And I hope you do that too. I hope that's what you're doing. You're figuring out a way to have what it is that you want within your values. So if keeping the things that are important to you, while inviting the other stuff that's also important to you and going through the changes. Do you still travel full time? I'm doing it right now. I'm in Albania. Yeah, full time. I have not been back to America since I left in 2016. And it's been dope. I haven't been homeless yet, which is amazing to me. 2010 me is shaking, right? It's been amazing. I've learned the most about myself. I have given myself the space to try. I have given myself the space to show up and grow and let go of the stuff I thought I needed and invite the stuff I actually need. And just enjoy how I spend my days for the most part when I'm not having my little meltdowns like I did the other day. Because it still happens for me too. Like sometimes I'm off. So I practice what I preach though. I talk about what I preach. I talk about what I live. And that's how I live. This is how I live. I take into account what I'm feeling. I take into account what it is that I want. And I put these hands to work. I'm putting this face to work now, and it's dope. I couldn't imagine not having this. Just think of all the places where you haven't fit, where you've had to cut off pieces of yourself in order to fit in. And that's pretty much every workplace ever. I don't know of any job one could have where they're really able to express themselves and use the fullness of their capacity and their interests. I think it's very rare. And so we all usually still have to make money. Most of us aren't independently wealthy or at the age where we're able to retire or whatever. So like money is a very important part of the conversation. And if you are going to make money how you want to make money, you have got to believe that it's possible. You've got to believe in yourself so that you can show up to make that money, to be of service in the way you want to be in service, to charge the way you want to charge, and do the thing. Am I allowed to cuss? And do the thing. All right, y'all. I usually ask if you have questions, or I try to anyway. I don't know if I have actually, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. You're also able to, which I want to talk about. So I wanted to talk about next week why it is popular for your friends and family to not support you with your travel and your business. This is a topic that has come up. I haven't talked about it. I haven't heard it talked about the way I want to talk about it. So that's what I was going to talk about next week, unless you all have something else you want to talk about. I'll probably still talk about it anyway at some point, but maybe you have something else that's a bit more pressing. Excuse me. So you can, you can message me. I'm on the Facebooks. I'm everywhere. So you can find me on Facebook at Wanda Duncan. You can find me everywhere. Usually I'm on the podcast account, Black Women Travel Podcast, or BWT Pod. If you're in the group, you can holler at me in the group, Black Women Digital Nomad Entrepreneurs. If I got your email, I'll be emailing you every week. You're welcome, KF. Just let me know. You let me know, girl. And I'm happy to parlay. Is it parlay? I think it's spelled a couple of anyway, whatever. Um, so if that is all, if we have had our time together, then I'm going to say bye to you. If you haven't yet, please take a moment to subscribe. And since I know you love this conversation, go ahead and hit that share button, hit the copy button, and go plaster it everywhere on Facebook, on Twitter. Take a screenshot, post it in your Instagram stories, let everybody know that we out here having good chats, opening our hearts, centering ourselves, inviting what it is we want in our lives. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Teresa. Teresa has been to thank you, Teresa. You have been to every single live, I think. Every single live. So thank you for showing up, girlfriend, and for being a Patreon supporter. I also have a Patreon, Black Women Travel, patreon.com/Black Women Travel. And you can join for as little as $3 a month. And you just get a little bit more access and a little bit more focus. And some other opportunities I come by as I'm out there in the internet streets. I kick them to y'all for discounted stuff, free stuff, just stuff I find useful in general. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you. All right, y'all. Y'all be good. Bye.